Why are corn stalks scared of me? Because Jimmy cracks corn and I don't care. We're talking corn whiskey on this episode of Texas Whiskey.
They're corny as fuck.
You love that joke. I was so excited. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Texas Whiskey. Thanks for putting up with my corny Jimmy joke. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson, a.k.a. Coach Jimmy, and rolling his eyes very loudly to my right is the doctor, Dr. Nico Martini. What's up, man? Are you already ready to drink after that?
Yeah, I don't even really start this, I'm like, good Lord. I need a shot just after that joke.
We are talking corn whiskey. You've decided to go ahead and start pouring, so you want to tell us what you're pouring?
Sure. This is an Iron Root Icarus straight corn whiskey.
Icarus? Yes. Iron Root. Our friends at Iron Root up in Denison, for those of you in the DFW area, about an hour north, just head towards Oklahoma and you will run into it. We're obviously big fans. We've done I feel like we've had lots of episodes where we talk wonderful things about Iron Root. Tell me a little bit about what makes this unique.
So this one, first, it's in the OG bottle.
It is in the OG bottle, yeah.
First and foremost, this bottle does not exist anymore. I don't know if you've heard of this glass shortage.
Right.
But there's a lot of bottles that have changed shape.
Yeah, I've noticed.
This is badass.
This one's really big compared to the one next to it, right?
This is so. Let me real quick. Let me go on a soliloquy about this particular bottle. It is so cool looking. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely impressive. I love the R. Like it's sleek.
Yeah.
It also doesn't.
The R is part of the glass. It's not like a sticker, right?
Yeah, it's part of the. There's depth to it. I don't know if you can see that, but there's actual depth to the thing. It looks so good. Not in a bar. It's such a pain in the butt to have this in your home bar because it's wide. It's oddly shaped.
Doesn't really.
It's not the same depth.
Yeah.
It's like and. Multiply that by trying to get it into a restaurant.
Oh, I bet.
Or trying to get it into a whiskey bar. The
only thing I can compare it to is like how like a Whistle Pig bottle is very differently shaped on when you see it in restaurants and whatnot as well. So it is a gorgeous bottle.
It's awesome, but man, it's like it is not built for speed or comfort at all.
That's one. If you have that bottle, you're not going to see that anymore. You might want to hang on to the bottle even after you finish the whiskey. I forgot that they had totally redone that.
Yeah, this is if you ever see, just because whiskey, and odds are it's going to appreciate in some capacity.
Sure.
If you are out in the wild and you ever see a bottle like this of the Iron Root, for the love, jump on it, because that don't happen anymore.
Most of that stuff you're going to find on the secondary market jacked way up, probably, for the whiskey collector nerds.
Yeah, you're not going to find it at all. So like if you see this thing out there, grab it, and then you can probably.
So they still make Icarus, it just doesn't look like that
actually. No, this is hubris.
Yes,
they do.
Yes.
Now their bottle looks like this.
Yes.
All of their bottles look like this. It's fantastic. They still have the thing on there, which is great. But yeah, totally brand change. This makes a lot more sense. There's a reason that whiskey bottles all sort of look similar, because if you're starting a brand and you're kind of sitting there thinking, man, yeah, I should have a really cool, interesting bottle. First of all, it's like, cool, custom. First and foremost. So if you want something interesting, nobody's going to have a lot of it, which means you're probably going to end up paying for custom. So your bottle's going to end up going from, I don't know, $1.20 to $3, which is a huge.
That's a big jump.
Huge jump. And it starts there, and then it turns into, hey, we need more bottles, man. We don't have time. Like, we don't have. Okay, we'll get to it when we can.
Gotcha.
As soon as we can get there.
And so if your bottle happens to look like 3 other distilleries' bottles,
they make a lot of these.
Yeah.
A lot of these. A lot of these. A lot of these.
I don't think I've ever really thought about that. And now next time I go into a liquor store, I'm just going to go, oh, that one and that one are the same, and this one and this one are the same.
Absolutely.
It's like it's a game of memory where you're flipping the cards over, right? Yeah.
This is the Grayson bottle.
The Grayson bottle. Well, I knew that, but I thought maybe just because with being an Iron Root and the relationship with Grayson, and that's why I thought that was the case. But
mainly it's because we're filling it at their distillery, and
they
that's
have those
how
bottles.
Their setup is, and they have those bottles. So yeah, that's fine. We'll go with that bottle. I mean, we had all sorts of ideas, but then it was like, what's actually functional?
That's crazy. I'm loving. I'm not even looking at my glass. I'm looking at your glass, and I love the color of that. It's like this very almost reddish, like amber color. It really stands out. Like, I don't know that we've poured a lot of things that looked that color to me.
That is a very interesting statement. I love that. Look
Thank
at
you.
you.
I'm getting all sophisticated and stuff.
He's all grows up.
I'm
He's
getting
all
there.
grows up.
I'm sure I'll mess up somewhere later. So
Yeah, I'm gonna drink some whiskey now.
okay.
Oh man. I love the depth of Iron Root, just sort of in general. Like the way that they can extract out of their barrels is really, really impressive. I'm a big fan. This is way better than your corny jokes.
It is.
Isn't that good?
My corny jokes get better if you drink more of that, though.
I believe.
Is it just me? Okay, can I just? I'm going to take a flyer here, and I may give up all the credit I just got.
All right, let's see.
But on the nose of this thing and tasting it, it tastes very unique to anything else I've had from Iron Root before. Mm-hmm. But it does have a little bit of that, and I know we've talked about this like in Brimstone and stuff, but am I crazy? But is there a bit of that like barbecue smell flavor to this?
Yeah, very much so. Very much
Okay,
so.
cool. I never trust my own palate, especially when I'm sitting next to people that are really good at this stuff. And I know at the end of the day, you taste what you taste and you smell what you smell. But I find that I still second guess myself a little bit. But that one, I wouldn't say it tastes like Balcones Brimstone, but that same smell. And when we did taste Brimstone, I remember comparing it to when you got those little individual bags that you would take, the barbecue chip bags, like at school when you're in elementary school. Like, to me, it had that smell and flavor to it, and there's a bit of that in this.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Okay.
I completely agree.
Nice.
I can't find it. I was looking desperately for this answer, but I am pretty sure that Icarus just won Best Corn Whiskey in the World from American Whiskey Magazine, like again.
Nice.
They keep doing it. They keep winning with this freaking whiskey because it's awesome.
It is.
Like it's fantastic. So Jimmy, what's corn whiskey?
I was just about to say, Nico, that segues us. So we're talking about corn whiskey.
Do you know what it is?
And I have a list of things here. Yes.
Okay.
It has to be 80% corn.
It does.
And so the very first thing I thought that if I was like, okay, if I'd never heard of corn whiskey before, I'm going to immediately think, well, isn't that bourbon? Because as a student of this show, I know bourbon has to be 51% corn. Aha. Mm-hmm. So.
But what else does bourbon have to have? What's the most important thing in bourbon? Truly. New charred.
Oh, is it the barrel?
Oak.
Okay.
New charred American oak. And the key differentiator between something like this and their Harbinger is new.
So they can use barrels that have been used before when it comes to corn whiskey.
Yes.
So would you say is all you know how the joke goes, all that, not the joke, but the saying is that all bourbon is whiskey but not all whiskey is bourbon?
Yes.
Would you also say all bourbon is corn whiskey but not all corn whiskey is bourbon?
Well,
no, because it has to be 80%.
I would say no corn whiskey is bourbon, and no
because it has to be 80
is corn whiskey. Yeah, because it's the barrel, because of the barrel.
But let's say you made a bourbon. You followed all the other bourbon rules.
Yes.
New barrel in America. Mm-hmm. The aging process is the same. But your mash bill was 80% corn instead of 51% corn. Yep. Would that also be a bourbon and a corn whiskey?
It would be.
Okay.
Yes, you could technically call it either thing. I believe you could technically call it either thing. However, you would never call a bourbon a corn whiskey.
Just from a marketing standpoint.
Because marketing.
Yes.
Literally. So, like corn whiskey's weird. corn whiskey is an odd category. Corn whiskey is not something that people are like, I'm going to go drink corn whiskey tonight.
It does sound like something that you want to put hee-haw on in the background, take your shoes off, put a piece of straw in your mouth, and sip on out of a big jug that says XXX and drink your corn whiskey.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And so if you are using a new barrel and your whiskey is 85% corn, you're absolutely calling it bourbon if you're making it in the U.S.
Sure.
And bourbon and corn whiskey, they're U.S. categories anyway. So
and they both have to be, and both are aged a minimum of 4 years. Is that correct as well? No. Oh, okay. I thought I don't.
No, straight bourbon doesn't even need. Straight bourbon's 2 years.
But does corn whiskey have to be 4?
No.
Oh, okay. No. I didn't know if there was
corn whiskey. I mean, that baby blue right there says 6 months.
You're right. It absolutely. Cool. We'll get to that here in just a minute. So
totally.
So before obviously we're going to focus on the thing. Corn whiskey that's being made in Texas. What's the corn whiskey popularity as far as across the board, Kentucky, everywhere else? Is it something we've made up and decided to lean into?
Well, I mean, it's essentially a weird category. Like the reason that Iron Root is messing with the reason that they make this hubris is I picked the wrong one. The reason, because I know this one, I need to look that one up. The reason that they make this Icarus is that instead of using new charred American oak, this is aged in port and in peat casks. That's why it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But the mash bill on this, I believe I need to ask Robert. I think it's obviously it's at least 80% corn.
Oh yeah.
It's probably 100% corn, honestly.
Really?
Just because that's the way that they roll, because they're very specific about their the choice of what is going to make the whiskey go in a specific direction. They're very specific about that. So with this, I would imagine they took out the variable of anything other than the port and the peat casks and
went all corn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Because that makes complete sense. So with the port and the peat cask, would that be a situation where they're aging it in
It is
each?
100% corn. It is 100%.
Going back just a minute to the aging process, just because we talked about this last week a little bit about like tri-barrel stuff. In that situation, is part of it aged in port, part of it aged in peat, and then there's a blend after that? Is that usually what that process is like?
Yeah. So basically, the Icarus, quote Iron Root.
Oh, well done.
Like its namesake, this whiskey flies close to the sun. We take our 100% corn and finish it for an additional year in both port and peated single malt barrels.
So it's finished in that. So it's not the whole process isn't in those barrels.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
But they also don't have to be, obviously, like as we've just said, they don't have to be in new barrels the way bourbon would have.
And especially if you're going to finish it for a year in a peat barrel and then finish it for a year in a port barrel.
Yeah.
Like you've got, you don't necessarily need. You don't necessarily need a lot of time in Texas.
Now,
in the other barrel.
I'm not saying this is what they did, but for an example, because they do bourbon, would this be something where they would take after those bourbon barrels, which were new to make the bourbon, use those barrels to make something like this? Because
absolutely,
okay,
100%.
Gotcha.
Because the thing about making bourbon is as soon as you dump that barrel, you can't use it to make bourbon anymore.
No, it has to be used for other things.
It's not new.
And we've talked about that, like those things. There's so many like bourbon finished, beers and barbecue sauces, and it's funny.
I mean, primarily it's single malt and rum.
Is where those were
the rum industry and Scotch, big time Scotch. Scotch is single malt, but Scotch is. They need the bourbon industry because we're the ones that sell them their barrels, because once they're dumped, they can no longer be made for bourbon.
Gotcha.
But Scotch doesn't matter. They can
Scotch is in like out of the country. They're sending these barrels.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, totally. No, I promise you, like Heaven Hill's working with Glenfiddich or something like that, and they're sending them thousands of barrels a month because that's the way that they roll. But yeah, because Scotch doesn't have to be new charred American oak.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have to be new at all, and so you can reuse a barrel. There's plenty of life in a barrel. Like you
absolutely.
can keep reusing these things, and so
I remember when again, not Texas, but I remember when. my cousin John, we went to Louisville for his bachelor party and toured different places. And maybe it was Stitzelwell. There was one that they literally took us through the lifeline of their barrels and how it ended up at a rum. These barrels had been shipped or resold 5 times at least. And it was like, oh, wow, that's really amazing to see where the life of these things go after, they have to be new for bourbon, but obviously they don't for this.
I mean, the bourbon thing, man, bourbon's fantastic, but bourbon will always be real woody because it's new charred American oak. It's so good. It's new charred American oak, and you are going to get a lot of wood extraction from a new barrel. If you're making something where you don't necessarily need as much extraction, or you're doing something different like the port and the peat casks, then you can use these used barrels. If you're Thai down at Andalusia, you can use used bourbon barrels. If you're trying to make a single malt with a little less impact,
right?
Then it's mellowed out. You want the age, you don't want the wood. Yeah, things like that.
So going back to let's stick with Iron Root here since we're already starting there, and tell me the difference between the Icarus and what's the other one that you have there?
The other one is the Hubris. This one's funny. So this is it is 100% corn that is aged. Here's the other thing. I'm so glad we picked this one. Here's the other thing. Bourbon has to be American oak. This is an European oak.
Okay.
Therefore, it's not bourbon.
Yep.
If it was an American oak, it would absolutely be a bourbon. It is not. They wanted to do an European oak.
And that one's 100% corn as well. Is that what you just said?
Cool. Yes, it is. So they are using their heirloom corn, their heirloom purple corn. They're also using non-GMO yellow dent corn on this one. In the Icarus, they are using primarily heirloom purple corn. They've also got red flint corn and then some yellow dent.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought this up because one of the other questions I had here is, does the type of corn vary?
Yes, vary.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I thought you were about to say matter. No. Like all corn is corn whiskey. Corn makes corn whiskey.
But just like when we talk about other grains or things like, I'm assuming the type of corn is also going to impact the flavor.
100%, regardless of what people who don't think terroir of whiskey matters. Yes, it absolutely impacts the flavor. If you're using a different corn, you're going to have a different flavor. And
I remember, if I go back to specifically our Iron Root episode, and I will invite you to go back if you're new to the show, go back and watch the Iron Root, because we were talking.
We need to have him up again.
Absolutely. Yeah. But they talked specifically about how they really were geeking out on this whole heirloom corn, all the variety of these. Really, it's always the corn, like when you go into like a Whole Foods or you go to like a farmer's market, you're like, what's the purple, what's the multicolored corn over there?
Right.
That's what they really are using a lot of to do things with.
Yeah, big time.
And so
the cool thing about Hubris, the story that I love about Hubris is the reason that it's named Hubris is that basically Jonathan wanted to make this and he wanted to use European oak. And Robert was kind of like, okay, I mean, why don't we use American oak and make it bourbon?
Right.
And he's like, no, I mean, I kind of want to do this, and we'll just make it a corn whiskey. And Robert's like, man, nobody buys corn whiskey. Like, that takes a lot of hubris in order to want to do this and sink a bunch of money into it. But it is fantastic. Like, I love it.
Okay, I would like to find out.
There you go. Thank you. Have at it, my friend.
Okay, so real quick while I'm tasting this, like I said, obviously we're going to talk about a variety of things corn whiskey wise that are happening inside of Texas. You've already said outside of Texas, particularly in Kentucky, there isn't, like, if I asked you to play, like, what's the most well-known corn whiskey in Kentucky? Is
Mellow
there
corn.
One? Mellow corn. Okay.
Mellow corn.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, 100%. It's absolutely mellow corn. And that's probably part of the reason why people are like, ugh. I mean, mellow corn's fine. Totally fine. But
it's interesting branding and labeling.
It's not a bourbon.
Yeah.
And people aren't into corn whiskey, they're into bourbon. And even if it's literally, other than the fact that it was a European oak and not an American oak, yeah, right? But it's but that does taste different than Harbinger.
Yeah,
because because it is a European oak. It is not American oak. Like there is a different.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, Yeah, they're really good at what they do.
And complex. It is this like potpourri of flavors once you like kind of let it sit on the palate for a minute. It's fantastic.
It's awesome.
But if you told me like if I did some blind with this, I don't know that it would be like, oh, that's a corn whiskey.
Speaking of blind, give me your other glass, please.
Oh, okay.
Yes. This one.
That you were going to ask for my water bottle.
No, I'm literally going to ask you to close your eyes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
This is fancy here.
So
okay,
close your eyes.
Closing eyes here.
I am going to pour Jimmy some corn whiskey that I would like him to I would like him to try. And sorry, this is taking a minute. Give me 1 second.
No, it's fine.
And because this is what a lot of people tend to think corn whiskey is.
Okay. Can I open yet?
And you can officially open your eyes.
Okay.
It is that one.
Oh. Which is, it's literally like White Dog. It's right off the still looking.
Yeah, this is what we call moonshine.
Oh.
Does it smell like corn?
It smells really sweet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's gonna be sweet. So that's one thing that's really kind of when you're talking about what is corn whiskey.
Yeah.
You have to differentiate what is moonshine and what is corn whiskey, because the general assumption is if you're talking about a corn whiskey, you're talking about moonshine.
Okay, so funny story. So the Nelson side of my family is all from Kentucky. When my dad comes back, he has brought me multiple. I don't know why he knows I do this show.
Right.
He continues bringing me back moonshine bottles.
Hey,
the whole upper shelf. Next time you're over, I will take you through the moonshine.
well, you know what we should
tour.
do? We need to take those and put them in some finishing barrels and let's see what could happen.
That would be fun. So
I have a Lone Elm barrel at my office. Like we
Okay.
could literally dump a bunch of moonshine in the Lone Elm barrel
I'm game.
and just see what happens.
So what makes that different? I guess what's because I think number one, this is actually sweeter than what I thought it would be. I think the very first time I've ever tasted something off the still was a rum, and it was like it just tasted like rubbing alcohol. This is actually drinkable. This is not terrible.
So this, I have no idea where I got this. I think that my brother gave it to me.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure my brother gave it to me. This is so other than it being illegal, really, kind of, moonshine doesn't really have it's not a category. You can call
Wait,
whatever.
you said illegal, but like I said, I have all these bottles that and I think you go into places now and you see they're marketing moonshine.
Of course.
And
Because
is moonshine and White Dog the same thing?
it's effectively the same thing.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, like moonshine, you cannot categorize. White Dog is unaged
Whiskey.
whiskey. Yeah, because it's not bourbon.
Right.
It is in no barrel.
But it
is
doesn't
not
matter
bourbon.
what the mash bill is or what.
I mean, it's typically made of corn.
Okay.
And the reason that the whole moonshine thing exists is because during Prohibition, when people were distilling their own stuff, and when alcohol was illegal, and they moved to a home distilling kind of venture.
A sad time.
It was terrible, and it was far too effective, in my opinion. It still works, but like it's likely that the majority of the moonshine that was coming out was made of corn.
Gotcha.
And so because I was around, that's what was around. There's a reason that the American whiskey is corn based and not malt based.
I don't mean to get way off the corn. Well, I guess if it's technically corn whiskey, we can talk about this. Did that become popular then because they were just trying to get it into market and there wasn't time to age it, or you weren't going to get caught aging it, and it was like, let's just make it and get
during
it?
Prohibition?
Yeah, why would something like moonshine be in that time? Like if you're obviously it's illegal either way,
right?
But you see what I'm saying? Like, is the whole point of not aging something the fact of we're just trying to get to the market as quickly as possible, the illegal market?
I mean, what Prohibition did more than any other than it was very effective at stopping the liquor industry. Other than that, the biggest downside of Prohibition was what it created was a situation where people were doing everything that they could to get drunk.
Right.
There was no more moderation.
Sure.
Because literally, think about the concept of a speakeasy.
Right.
If you are going to risk being arrested,
You don't know when it's going to get raided, so you might as well pound them, right?
you don't know when it's going to
Yeah.
get raided. You have to go through this alley and talk to this guy, and you have to know somebody, and they have to let you in.
Right.
And then while you're in there, at any moment, you could be
Arrested,
taken
yeah.
down to the pokey. You're gonna hustle
Yeah.
with the drinking, and it created this culture of just uber inebriation. And like it
makes me think of
part of
that-
the reason that moonshine will make you go blind. It's first of all, if you distill in a certain way at home and you don't take out all of the things that you're supposed to take out, it can literally make you go blind.
Right.
But like most importantly, like if you are distilling it all, it's just shrunk all of the time frames.
Sure.
Like at no point. At no point did anybody make a whiskey at the beginning of Prohibition, and then by year 10, they were like, let's put our whiskey out into the market,
Right.
which didn't exist.
Sure.
It was just like, let's go time. So
It was, I used to have a buddy of mine that I used to wait tables with. That he said, "I'm drinking with a purpose," and so like I feel like I'm a very social drinker. His point was, I'm trying to get blasted.
Right.
Was that?
Yeah. So I mean, literally, the definition of moonshine is an illegally made unaged spirit.
Gotcha.
So,
and last, and then we'll move on to MKT here. I remember when we took our trip to Whistle Pig, and we tasted stuff straight off the still there. I think that was the first time I was like, oh, this doesn't taste like rubbing alcohol that just punches you in the face. There is this sweet flavor. In the same way, do you know where this is from?
No, I don't.
It's fine.
I don't.
I know that it's in a mason jar that's unlabeled. So
No, literally, it was labeled
some Christmas
It was
card.
labeled Bubby's Moonshine with a nice little thing.
Shout out to Bubby's wherever you
I
are.
obviously got it for Christmas from
Right.
somebody, and they put a lot of effort into
That's
getting
either Christmas
it to
or
me.
it looked like a garter. I was wondering if that came
It's
off like
kinda garterish.
There was something that was at a
Yeah.
wedding. That
I don't know. I guess it
Let's
might
move
be.
on to MKT, which we haven't talked about a ton on this show, and I know that you want to give them some love. So
I do.
Tell us about the next bottle you got there.
So MKT is a distillery down in Katy, and which is outside of Houston. Nicholas Jessett is the owner and distiller down there. He went to great lengths to have this bottle of whiskey dropped off at my house and hidden in a flower pot yesterday, so I really appreciate it.
Wow.
He made
That sounds illegal also.
No, this is a gift. That's
Right,
not
it's
that
a-
you
that's
can, I'm
fine.
allowed to give people whiskey.
Right.
He's allowed to give
no,
me whiskey.
it was about something about it being left in a flower pot. That was probably.
I mean, the
at
flower
the
pot.
drop point.
Yeah, we should have. I mean, nobody was carded.
Sure.
Probably there's some sort of illegality to it, but regardless.
So they're outside of Houston in Katy, and
See that?
yeah,
Isn't that cool?
we got a little condensation or smokiness there.
Okay, so this is a Texas corn whiskey. This is their engineers.
The engineers.
And yes, and so the thing that I love
I
about
see the
their-
Texas whiskey label on there, the seal on there.
it is a certified Texas whiskey.
lovely.
I'm going to hand you this bottle. The thing that I love about MKT is their distillery is one of the coolest ones that I've been to.
Okay.
Because basically they bought these like these old rice silos. And so
Okay, I do remember us talking about this.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And so they bought these old rice silos, and they and basically they put their distillery in there. MKT. It's for the train line that literally runs beside the silos. That train line is now defunct.
Oh,
However,
the same way like the Katy Trail here was named after a
exactly.
railroad line, right?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
it was named after the railroad
Texas
line.
corn whiskey, 95 proof, age 43 months.
43 months. That's pretty freaking old for what they're doing down there. Yeah. What do you get? Have you?
I haven't
noticed it?
got that far yet.
Yeah. It's very mellow, but it's also like.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's
I mean, like you
Compared to
you
what we've
compare
just
this
been
to
drinking, yeah,
freaking
it's-
Iron Root
yeah.
or the True Blue cask strength that we're about to talk about.
It's super chill.
It's chill. It's drinkable. I hate that, but
But it does
is
have almost,
drinkable.
and I haven't tasted it yet. It really does have this like odd flowery note.
It's floral. It's
Okay.
floral as hell. Yeah, like this
Getting
is
good at this shit,
You are.
Nico.
You are.
Come on.
There's like a. It smells like a violet actually. Yeah. There's a very floral essence to it. What do you think?
It's lovely. It has this very like.
That's great.
Yes.
That makes me so happy, Nick. I'm so happy about this.
Is this the first time you've ever had this also?
This is the first time that I've had it in 2 years, and
Okay.
so like I have never had anything that he's aged for this long, like at all.
This is
I've
great.
had I had a little sample when I was down there
Yeah.
writing the book, but yeah, like this is the first time that I've actually. That's really great. Like this is a really, really cool whiskey. I look forward to this with like another year in a barrel.
Yeah.
Like I think that could I think it could go in a really interesting direction. But at the same time, I think this stands
But almost
on its own.
Almost the way that gin is really like flowery, I guess, if you would
Yeah.
say that. Like it has those similarities to me in that in a fantastic way. And it really is super chill. It's very, and again, drinkable is all this stuff is drinkable. It just depends on what you like. But if you are someone who doesn't want something that's super aggressive and you're like, oh, you know, like there's certain whiskeys that it lets you know, hey, we're here, that it's really chill. I just want to sit out on my back patio and like put some like easy listening music on and sip on. That's this all day long.
So why do you think this is a corn whiskey and not a bourbon?
Well, okay, so have we established that it's not 100% corn?
I believe it is 100%. Wait, what did it say on the bottle? Did it give you a breakdown? I believe it's 100% corn. Mm-hmm. He might be. I know
It just says Texas corn whiskey.
Okay.
And no, I don't.
So this is 100% corn. And this was done with a combination of this was entirely aged in used bourbon barrels.
Oh, cool.
So as you know.
Yeah.
So if Shire down the road from MKT is making bourbon and now they dumped it after 2 years because their straight bourbon's ready.
Yep.
What are they going to do with the barrels? If Nick's making corn whiskey, then by all means go grab the barrels and make your corn whiskey because
Nice.
it doesn't have to be new. This is
Fantastic.
cool. I like it. I like this one.
We have a lot of bottles from our friends from Balcones.
We do. we have a lot of those. Let's kick it off with the baby blue.
Okay.
So the baby blue.
This is the Texas Rangers edition. Funny story about this bottle. I bought one for me and one for my brother, who is a big Rangers guy. I'm a big sports fan. I will say the baseball ranks lower on my fandom
on the totem
situation.
Right.
And funny story, the only reason this is open, and you probably have forgotten this, is I brought this bottle in when we
Okay.
did the Balcones episode, and which you should go back and watch, because we thought, they were going to provide their own. I asked you.
Oh yeah. I
was like, hey.
Yeah, when Alex forgot the
I was
bottles
like,
of
hey,
whiskey.
is Alex bringing stuff in? And you're like,
I just naturally assumed that he was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I literally have, again, I'm not asking for a sponsorship, Balcones, but I'm asking for a sponsorship. I have more bottles I literally have an entire shelf that's nothing but Balcones in my whiskey collection area.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I grabbed one of these for my brother as a gift, and I was like, I'm gonna get one of these. It's this Ranger commemorative. There's the little coin on here. I'm not gonna open this. It's a very reasonably priced bottle. Mm-hmm. So we're in
If
here.
I need another one, I can find it.
We're
It's
talking
easy.
to
Yeah.
Alex. We're talking. We're drinking, and all of a sudden, Nico goes, "Hand me that bottle," and I was like, "Okay."
This is the same thing that happened with that Still Austin wheat that you got. That was a massive pain in the ass to go find. Yeah.
I know. So anyway, this baby blue, according to the back, this was the first Texas whiskey on the market.
Well, according to the back and according to the book.
Oh, according to the book.
It was the first Texas
Nico
whiskey.
always has to plug his book at one point in an episode.
Yes.
Which is good. Go get the Texas whiskey book.
Jimmy also always has to plug my book at least once in
I do. So if I read at the back of this, it says the first Texas whiskey on the market since Prohibition. Mm-hmm. Baby Blue is crafted from roasted blue corn. This rich and oily maize adds new sophistication to the corn whiskey tradition while keeping the freshness and verve of a classic American distilling. Intentionally youthful, Baby Blue captures the essence of this prized corn with its round nuttiness, roasted overtones, and refined complexity. So the back of this says aged at least 6 months. And I think people sometimes get confused on Baby Blue and what we have 3 different bottles of different variations of True Blue, right?
Yes, we do. So Baby Blue is the first Texas whiskey on the market since Prohibition. This is the one that was rushed into the liquor store in order to make sure that
we're on the market first.
Had the first one, and but the thing is, like, I have no idea how old the first one was, the actual first one. I feel it was. If I remember correctly, it was probably about a month. But the thing is, like, 6 months in 6 months in Texas can do things like this. And
we've talked about this on the show a gajillion times. For people that traditionally
smells so young,
just knows Kentucky or for wherever, it's like, oh, that's really young. And it is. And it's not, and again, you've said this a million times, it's not that it ages faster here, it just ages differently here because of our climate.
Yeah, it's more intense. And I mean, the fact that you can take, like, literally, it looked like this 6 months ago.
Right.
So, like, you can go from there to there. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, obviously 6 months in Texas can do something to a whiskey.
Sure.
But yeah, it's incredibly soft. It's very.
Has it been a minute since you've had that?
Yes.
I feel like that's not on the
right
in the Nico rotation all the time.
I'm in the cast strength hell. And,
right.
You know,
cast strength.
All I'm drinking is Hubris and Icarus and Grayson.
What's the proof on this? Like, I feel like everything you're drinking is. It's 46% alcohol by volume. So
okay. So you're looking at 92 proof.
Yeah.
So yeah, and everything over here is probably like 140 or something like that. Because, you know, that's how we do. This is cool. I have not had this in a long time. It's very soft. It's very
I will say
it's viscous.
I'm a big fan. For those of you that are cocktail people, and we don't talk cocktails a ton on this show, and I feel like I would love to talk cocktails more soon.
So the next week, Jimmy's hosting a cocktail hour in which he tells you.
We're just going to come into my home and we're going to do
everything he thinks about cocktails.
So like here, so for those of you in Dallas-Fort Worth, if you go down to Billy Can, down by the American Airlines Center, what I love about their happy hour is all the happy hour is anything from Texas, right? And they have a very extensive collection of Texas, specifically balcones. And I feel like this makes a fantastic old fashioned.
Yeah.
Like I really do
absolutely.
enjoy that as an old fashioned.
Absolutely. Okay. So stepping up from this, let's go with the True Blue 100. Okay. You have the True Blue 100, yeah?
Yes. Okay. And so it's curious. So we literally have 3 bottles of True Blue here.
Yes.
We have these. We have the regular, right? Or is that cast strength?
These are both cast strength. These are True Blue cast strength.
So are those a higher proof than this is?
That is 100 proof. This one is 126.1.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
This one, geez, this one is 125.9.
Okay. And then there's actually just regular True Blue on the market as well.
Yes, there is True Blue. Right. Just regular True Blue.
Okay, so I have to give a shout out to my dad because this was my Christmas gift. Was nice. My True Blue 100, and I opened it that night because I was like, "Oh, I'm going to check this out." Have you had this?
I have not had that, or if I had, it's been a long time.
So I'm going to get the Nico Martini first impressions of True Blue. So you can get regular True Blue, which I don't know what. I guess I'm sure we can look it up and find out what the regular
difference between True Blue 100 and.
Yeah, because the fact that you have 2 cast strengths, and we'll talk about the difference in those 2 bottles here in just a second. But this is the 100 proof. And so as you're smelling and checking that out, it says Since the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897, 100 proof has long stood for quality and authenticity.
They do this. Balcones does this. They have their rye 100. They do the 100 thing often.
100% of this whiskey in this bottle was born, raised, and bottled at Balcones from mash to glass. True Blue 100 retains the depth and complexity of overproof spirits with the softer edges, supple textures, and fuller fruitiness that slight delusion can bring. What do you think?
Delusion.
Dilution? I felt like I misread that.
Dilution.
Delusion
is the fact that you thought that joke was going to be funny at the top of the show. That's
Some people
delusion.
laughed. 3 people laughed.
Yes, 3 people laughed.
So what do you think of this?
It's cool. There's a very cinnamon vibe on the nose, kind of like there's also like a dried, like chocolatey type. There's a chocolatiness to it, and maybe a little apricot.
I need to revisit this because we cracked this bottle on Christmas Eve after I'd had multiple whiskey eggnog.
Ooh,
So.
it is oaky. It's black tea.
Yeah.
There's it's coffee.
Coffee?
There's lots of coffee and there's
Really?
lots of leather in there, I think. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. I'm a fan. Yeah, that's really cool. But I feel like you're right. I think the baby blue would make a better old fashioned.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. That's interesting. Okay, so
Sometimes I feel like these stronger things, if you were like, so the other day I don't drink a lot of Manhattans, but Manhattans are a really boozy drink, obviously. But I always feel like these things that are a little more aggressive on the forward end make a better Manhattan. Because if you're like, look, if I'm just going to have this boozy of a drink, I want that as well. So talk about the fact that we have True Blue. Over near you, you have 2 cast strength True Blues,
Yes.
but they are different.
Okay, so this kind of, we're talking about corn whiskey, and we've sort of established what that is. The thing that I wanted to, the reason that I brought both of these in is that these are both single barrel picks.
Okay.
And so I wanted you to try the same whiskey in slightly different versions. So like literally when you walked in,
when I walked in, I thought you had the same 2 bottles.
Are
I was
those
like,
the same? I'm like, well,
why'd you bring 2 bottles in?
sort of.
Right.
But the thing is with whiskey, and maybe this is just because I'm in Graceland right now, and it's
1 and 1B. And
a lot of the questions are, well, why is it 1B and why isn't it a batch 2? And I'm
Right.
like, well, it's kind of the same, but it's kind of different. Yada yada. So both these are True Blue cast strength. One of them is a Total Wine single barrel pick.
Okay.
And this one is a Lincoln Road single barrel pick, which is a liquor store in Illinois, I believe.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So the differences between these two, the biggest difference is that
One's aged longer than the other. Is that what we
this
saw?
one is aged 24 months,
Okay.
so 2 years. This one is aged 34 months,
Okay.
so almost 3 years. Here you go.
So wait, this is okay. Let's make these sure they're the same on this way. Okay.
So the one that you have right now is the one. The one that you have right now is the one that is
Wow, they
aged
smell
34
different,
months.
too.
That's the thing, man. It's exactly the same whiskey, except, well, this one stayed in the barrel for 10 months longer, and instead of being, and it is 62.9% alcohol, whereas this one stayed in for 2 years, and it is 63.1% alcohol.
But it's the exact same mash bill.
Exact same barrel.
So
yes,
the
or
only
the exact
difference
same
is how
whiskey.
long they were aged.
Yes,
And a different barrel.
and a different barrel, but.
Are they both barrel picks? So they both came from a barrel?
They are both
So there's no
single barrel
blending
picks.
involved. Okay, gotcha.
They're both single barrel picks. And so that's a real quick way to kind of know that what happens to whiskey changes it so much.
Okay, so the one closest to you, this one has a much stronger nose on it. Is that the longer?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
that makes sense.
Yes, it is. What are you getting on there as far as the nose goes?
This one also has a very, like the way their brimstone tastes a little bit. It has that
That's interesting.
barbecue-y.
Yeah. I can see that. I can totally see that.
And then let's see. In the total wine pick.
Yeah, there. Do you get any banana? Like overripe banana?
In the first one?
Either one.
In this one more I do.
That's interesting. Yeah. So like that is a compound. Like that is an actual compound. There's I'm writing a story right now for American Whiskey.
Right.
It's an interview that I did with Rob Arnold, who will be on the show next week. But yeah, basically we were talking about the terroir of whiskey, and I had this story when I was talking to Randall Sullivan, and I was doing his podcast.
Who's also been on the show. Yeah. Go watch that episode.
Which is, he hosts Bourbon Talk, Bourbon Real Talk. And was talking to him about just, I don't even know where we were in the interview, but basically he told me this story about how he had sort of become known jokingly as the banana whiskey guy, because every time he would walk into a room, he'd be like, there's a banana, a little banana in there, and it became.
But every time I think banana whiskey,
right,
I think of the Pflugerville.
Yes, because
where we went there as well. Right?
There's so much banana in there. But like,
where does that come from?
It is a compound. Like it is a compound.
But they didn't throw a banana in the barrel.
No, absolutely not. And I mean that's the thing that. That's the thing that you have to realize with when you are talking about all of these tasting notes, there are certain molecular compounds that make you think that there is blank in it.
Right.
There is a compound that makes you think that there's grapefruit in it. There's a compound that makes you think there's banana, overripe banana in it. Like these are molecular compounds. That's all flavor actually is. Is the way that your body interprets this compound. And so he's very good at picking out the banana compound.
Yeah.
So he became the banana whiskey guy.
Funny.
And he was on a tour.
The way you should be the dessert whiskey guy, because it's kind of what you do.
I'm the creme brulee whiskey guy.
So anyway, he was on a tour.
Yeah, he's on a tour at Wild Turkey, and he's talking to Eddie Russell, and like they walk him in and they pour everything out, and Eddie had he'd talked to them, he knew them and whatever. And so they pour these samples, and he turns to Randall and he goes, "And don't tell me there's banana in my whiskey." And so he picks it up. He literally goes like to his buddy. He's like, "There's banana in this whiskey. There's totally banana in this whiskey." So I don't remember what they were tasting, but like it's literally a compound that is in a lot of whiskeys. Like you do get a lot of banana vibes often, because however you're distilling it, it's either taking away the things that take over that compound, or it's heightening that compound, or whatever. I mean, man, whiskey tasting is absolutely fascinating.
It really is.
When you get down to it.
So as we're wrapping up here, for the people out there that had, like, I've never had corn whiskey.
Corn whiskey is the ultimate. Is the amount of flexibility that you have within corn whiskey allows you to be more creative than any bourbon you will ever have.
Okay,
because frankly, a bourbon you are absolutely limited by. If you would like it to be straight, it has to be 2 years. It always has to be in New Tart American Oak. It has to be 51% corn. It's usually higher than 51% corn, but it has to be 51%
But the fact that all these
corn.
are 80%, the fact that the barrels there's a big variety, and the types of corn.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can adjust the types of corn inside of bourbon also. But I feel like what we're playing with, we're talking about, is this yellow corn? Is this heirloom? Is it whatever? Like, I feel like there needs to be a rebranding of corn whiskey a bit from, like what we said. It isn't this.
I mean, it's honestly, man, it's stuff like this. It's stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's very high quality whiskey that just doesn't happen to be bourbon. And the thing is, like, man, as I own part of a brand. I understand the way that you have to market things. I absolutely get it. There's a reason that we named Grayson a blended bourbon
Sure.
as opposed to a blend of straight whiskeys.
Yeah.
Because that's technically what it is, but it's also a blended bourbon. And by God, I wanted bourbon on the label.
Yep.
Because that's what America buys.
Yep.
America buys bourbon. And so America doesn't buy corn whiskey, meaning if you get into this stuff and you kind of find some corn whiskeys that you're into, they're going to be a lower price point.
Yep.
Some of the Iron Roots not, because they have very, very bushy barrels that they deal with. But for the most part, it's going to be a lower price point. It's going to be done a little bit differently. It's going to taste a little bit differently than bourbon, but it's basically bourbon without the new Tart American Oak, which lots of people would argue that that's the thing that makes bourbon.
Right.
And that's fine.
Sure.
But it gives the distiller a whole stack of tools that they do not have when they're making bourbon.
No, I get it. And so as someone who, look, my whiskey palate and what I like has definitely expanded from this show, hanging out with you. But at the end of the day, if you made me pick something, I'm a bourbon guy. I absolutely am a bourbon guy. And so the fact that all of this...
But if I poured you this...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Next
so for those
to
of you that,
three fabulous bourbons,
those of you
may
that are
pick
like
this.
bourbon people, I'm going to encourage you, go find you some corn whiskey.
Maybe this.
Go give you a taste of one of these and let us know. In fact, we would love to know more about what you want to hear more about. We would love if you give us a 5-star review on whatever device or wherever you're listening or watching us as well. But we do want to hear from you. You can follow this guy at Texas Whiskey Book on Instagram. Send him DMs. Just blow him up. Like, really bug him. I really want you to bug him a lot.
Bring it on.
I'm the coach.
Slide into my DMs.
Slide up on in there. Smooth as moonshine.
I do.
Slide
But
in there.
before we wrap up, I want an extra shout out for to MKT because I'm so happy to taste what I tasted coming out of that bottle.
It's amazing.
Like, I cannot wait to see what direction they're moving in. And
we need to take a trip down there and we'll do an on-location show.
Yeah, dude, it's gorgeous. It's really cool. They have these food trucks and it's so pretty.
Oh, the foodie in you loves that.
Absolutely.
I'm the Coach Jimmy on Instagram. DM me and just tell me, hey, I like your suit. I have any questions because all the questions are going to Nico. We really appreciate you watching. And
I didn't even get to this one. This is secret whiskey. I'll pour it for you after the show.
Do we have 2 minutes?
Nah, okay, fine. Here, okay, real quick.
All right. This was my really I was going to wrap this up with a bow, but I didn't realize it was another bottle.
Okay.
Really quick. Stay with us.
Real quick. So this is a 100% corn whiskey from Treaty Oak. I have no idea where this thing's from.
Treaty Oak?
This is from Treaty Oak.
Okay.
So I am assuming the fact that I think this is probably... I don't know if they make corn whiskey. They don't, Ghost Hill is not a corn whiskey.
Right.
Everything that they do is bourbon. This could be a bourbon. She just, this is from my friend Jamie, who is no longer there. And I still don't know why. I need to call her.
My friend Elise is with them.
Yes, we need to get Elise in here and have a conversation. And it's all going to be me saying, "Where's Jamie? Why is Jamie? Do you like it?
Yes.
I haven't tasted it. Mine's full. What do you think? Is it? It looks young. Is it young?
Absolutely.
It's sweet.
It's one step up from moonshine you just gave me. Is the way I look at that. I mean, look at the clarity of it.
Oh, that could be very good.
Yes.
I mean, it is good, but
it's great.
But
would you
age
agree
this
it's
thing,
a step, it's
totally.
one age step up from that moonshine?
Absolutely. No, man, just bottom line, corn whiskey is interesting and you need to just not ignore it and don't think that it's moonshine because that's not true. There's the bow. Go drink some corn whiskey. Thank you so much for watching. Give us an amazing rating because we work hard. We do. For you.
We sit here and talk and drink booze. It's really rough.
For you.
I know. For Dr. Nico Martini, my name is Coach Jimmy. And until next time, cheers y'all. Got to